Well, I think sticking with the most relevant stuff, I kind of just want to jump into the Acolyte real quick since we watched it, Andrew, and we talked about it a little bit. And this is like the episode that I feel like we were kind of waiting for, because this
Yeah.
is the episode that it's not the finale, right? This is the penultimate episode. There's still
Yes.
one left. Um, but this was the what did happen episode. Right now we're gonna have the
The
what did it
culmination.
cause? Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was the what happened episode, and um I think it was better done than I was expecting it to be.
Good. Yeah. I mean it's funny because like, I think even though Lauren gives no flying frigates about Star Wars, I you probably sense like, me and Kevin had a bit of an ideological like um divide on whether or not like the Jedi were the good guys or the bad guys in this. And Kevin was like, "This is the only way it makes sense. Like they have to be bad. Like that's just they're not bad. It just doesn't make sense." And I'm just kind of like, "There's got to be more to it than that." So I am looking online and I do see like a headline from Collider, who I kind of respect. And they're like, the Jedi really are the bad guys, like in episode 7. I'm like, F you. So, anyways, after I watched this episode, though, no, it's like what you were saying, Kevin. I do think it was a bit more nuanced because
Hmm.
really there's like just, really quick for those who saw it or didn't see it or whatever, there's like four Jedis who go over to this planet called Brandok where there's these space witches and they have these two twins who were basically created by the Force. And basically, I'll describe each of the four Jedi. One's a Wookiee, so you just don't want to piss him off. One is Indara, who's played by Carrie Ann Moss from The Matrix, who's amazing, and she's the leader. Then you've got Saul, who's from Squid Game, and he's kind of like I would describe an emotional, wise, but emotional guy. And then you've got fucking Anakin, Proto Anakin. Okay,
Hmm.
so basically, Proto Anakin is all angsty. He wants to just go home. So basically, I mean, now I'm almost ruining it. But long story short, all I'll say is this: it was almost a tragic comedy of errors where, I do think Saul accurately knew that one of the space twins wanted to become a Jedi. But then basically, when they actually go get the kids, like, Mother Witch decides to turn into a smoke monster for God knows why. And then when she turns into a smoke monster, Saul overreacts, takes out his lightsaber, kills her. And then she's like, I was going to let you take her. It's her
Yeah.
choice. And then she dies. And I'm like, fuck. So basically, and then basically her like other mom, whatever, is like, okay, it's fucking wartime. And then it's
Yeah. And then
all
it goes,
fucking
yeah.
goes to shit. So to me, that's not the Jedi being evil. It's just Saul was a little quick on the trigger, and Anakin, pro Anakin, was like his whole approach was just wrong, So, but they definitely were like space child protective services gone wrong. That's how I would describe it. I've talked enough. You go.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't count them like that. I mean, Child Protective Services' job is not to go into a home and take a kid because it doesn't like, soup for dinner. Like they weren't abusing these children. They weren't doing anything wrong other than telling them that they should believe in this one thing, which if our entire planet is founded on, it's that children are raised under certain religions or not raised under certain religions, whether they like it or not. Like that's just how it goes. If you're born in India as a child, you're probably going to grow up, Hindu or whatever. If you're born in, China, you're gonna I don't know what religion they follow in China, to be honest. Buddhist? No, it's not Buddhism,
I think it is actually.
is it?
So yeah.
But before I sound like too much of a jackass, just basically like in different places, you're gonna be raised a certain way, and if you don't believe that, um, you don't necessarily have to believe it, but you have to do that for a while, and that's not child abuse as long as you don't actually abuse your children in the delivery of that thing. So, I mean, to come in and be like, "Hey, we think we know better than you about raising your kid. We're going to take them." That's not right. But um, now when the mom whose name I'm forgetting,
Okay.
um, the badass mom, like super dope, Jodie Turner Smith. Um, she 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 saw the light. I mean, she would. I don't think she was just avoiding a fight. I think she really wanted her children to be happy.
Yes.
Like,
She
you
said,
know,
I choose mother. I'm leader and I'm mother. And this is,
yep,
I
that's
choose mother.
exactly. And, I think, in her perfect world, the children would stay together. The two girls would
Mhm.
stay together. They're, because they're legitimately two halves of a whole, and they cover that. They're not twins.
No, they're two halves of
They're
one full.
yeah, yeah. And so, in that regard, they're very unique and in theory should probably stay together. But one wanted to stay, one wanted to go. And the only thing for me in this episode, the only thing that wasn't, good about this episode, in my opinion, was her choice to turn into a smoke monster. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's the only problem I have with any episode storytelling wise, really at all. It doesn't ruin the episode for me because it drives everything forward. But like, why wouldn't she just say, "Let's all calm down. I'm gonna let her go with you." Like, what was the purpose of like, you know what? Let me turn into something really scary so I can tell you the thing that I could just tell you with this very pleasant, calm face. Like she's always calm,
Yeah.
and like that was a weird choice for me. Like from the storytelling standpoint, it didn't really work for what they were trying to do.
Okay, I have two things. Number one, you're right that CPS is not there to take people away from a religion. But remember, I was trying to find the quote while you were talking. I can't find it, but it's either May or Osha when they're asking. I think it's May when they ask her like they want me to be a leader, but your children, how can you be leader? I don't know. And then she says something really weird, like, it is our job to sacrifice for the coven or whatever. It just sounded off. And they're looking at it like, yo, that's not normal. Like, so basically, going off of what they knew, they were like, this seems a little weird. And they're also like, what they're all doing in the middle of the night, like all like it again, it's not again, they didn't go in there going, oh, we think your religion is bad, we're gonna take you away. They literally thought these kids might be in danger. Now,
They never
um,
thought the kids were in danger, though. They never once said the kids were in danger.
it,
They thought they were created by a virgins in the Force, but they never
yes.
thought the kids were in danger.
Ascension must be very important to include a marking like that.
Mama says Ascension means Ocean and I will lead the coven. That's why I have a marking like Mama.
But your children, how can you become the leaders?
I don't know. Mama said everyone must walk through fear. Everyone must be sacrificed to fulfill their destiny.
The quote to me is the one that was what pushed them over the edge into actually wanting to go ahead and get one of them. I remember that
Because I
quote.
think if they felt that way, they would have gone in for both. And they didn't go in for both. They would have only taken one. So they couldn't have been concerned about their well-being if they were willing to only take one.
But remember, even when he goes to the bridge, and that was also shady as hell, Saul is force holding both of them, and he
Hmm.
makes a decision to
Yep.
let May go. So
Yep.
to me, it's like I think Indara does say go get the kids after everything goes to shit. And then basically he tries to get both of them. He drops May, which is shady as hell, and then basically saves Osha.
Yep.
So, ultimately, here's what I'll just say. So I think that here's where we agree. I think that the episode was way more complex than I think you were expecting. I do think that sometimes in real life, people make actions or decisions that just kind of don't make sense. I want to know, maybe we can ask Leslie, we can find out what was what was leader thinking when she turned into a black smoke monster? Like, how is that going to calm things down? But she
The
did it.
only thing I can think of is that I think the other one did it also when she started kind of
Controlling,
controlling the
yeah,
other
the booking.
witches. So
Yeah, yeah,
the point might have been to calm her own people
yeah,
down. But I feel like she still could have communicated that
a lot better.
first.
Yeah.
It's a weird choice for me. It's a weird choice to do something like significantly like body changing in front of someone when they're already tense and feeling the aggression, right? Um, But
Hell, I mean, even Fort Sumter, I think that's how the Civil War started. Like it's just a tense moment, and then someone just fires a gun, and then once that little flame just happens, boom, 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 fucking Civil War.
yeah,
So to me, it's like that's just realistic. But yeah, we'll let Leslie explain that.
yeah, I am
But
curious about that one.
yeah, but overall, I feel like they were their hand was forced. I think that the Jedi aren't like they're not these like they're not evil. I think they're just kind of human and kind of misguided. And
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
too, like, you kind of see why for them emotion is actually a bad thing,
Oh
because
yes.
that's what
Thank you for bringing that up.
dicked the whole thing
Yes.
was Torben being like he felt like he was too big for the job and he wanted to go home. He was like, this is bullshit. I'm just picking up fucking moss. He's like, what is it? And then Soul is like the other side of the coin. And I put it in our chat, but I liken to it where Indara is the politician. She's looking at everything, like trying to keep everything cool. She's like, we can't take those kids. We can, you know, come back at a later date, check on
She didn't
things,
even want to
whatever.
go in with all of them. She's like, I'll just go in
Yep.
myself. And she's like, if we all go in together, it's going to be a threat. And they're like,
Yep.
there's like 50 of them and one of you. We go
Yep.
as a team. And she's like, fine. You know?
Yeah.
So you're right. And then Saul just jumping into it was so emotional. Like he like literally was like every and Indara said twice, like, are you like confusing their emotions for your emotions?
Yep.
Like because he was
Yep.
so like invested, like because I think one thing that you were talking about how you felt like Indara might have been a little what's the word, arrogant, or in
Mhm.
terms of that she knew everything, because he was saying, yo, like you're proto Anakin, his name's Torben.
Yeah.
Corbin, like, he's all agitated, blah, blah, blah. She's like, are you sure it's him or is it you? And then she basically said, look, I think it's better for these people to find the answers to their own questions and not answer it for them. And I actually
Mhm.
agree with that. And then Saul's like, and then she's like, you disagree? And then she's like, well, that's why I have a Padawan and you don't. And I do agree, for the record, podcast, that it is much better to teach someone how to fish than give them fish. So empower them. That's number one. And then number two, with OSHA, like yes, he sensed that OSHA wanted to be a Jedi. She did not want to be a space witch, but he overstepped his bounds and
Mhm.
basically, yes, coached her to basically kind of like make her case. But at the end of the day, her own mom, who should know her, said, I know my daughter wants to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
All Saul had to do was have a cooler head, observe what the smoke monster was going to do, and then all would have been fine. And then basically Darth Maul, Coral would have had to Coral might have actually put up a fight anyway, because she did say, over my dead body,
Yep.
are am I going to let those kids go?
Yeah, like there's reasons for the smoke monster thing for sure. They just didn't feel clear. Like she could have been trying to calm Coral down. She could have been trying to calm all the witches down. She could have been doing X, Y, and Z. It's just like if she would have just looked Saul in the face and said, I want I want her to be able to go with you, and then done whatever, shit wouldn't have gone down. If stupid Torben had listened to Indara in the first place, shit
Not
wouldn't have
gone.
gone down. If Saul listened to Indara in the first place, shit doesn't go down. Like it all comes down to just being too aggressive in the situation, being too emotional in the situation for the situation. Now, from a cool Star Wars standpoint, there was some dope stuff in this episode too. Number one, the super badass Wookiee Jedi kicking ass was dope. And you
Yes.
can see why, like, that's a scary thing, right?
Mhm.
Because they took him over, they controlled his mind, but he was savage, man. He was a monster.
Yeah. It was amazing that they didn't kill him.
Well,
But
so that's one of the fight choreography things. When Saul is fighting him,
yeah.
he jumps over his lightsaber and he's swinging his own down, and he actually turns it off so he doesn't hit
Yeah.
Kelnaka. So
Yeah.
like he's literally conscious of not hurting his
Yes. Which
friend.
is beautiful.
Well, yeah, which is awesome, and the choreography was dope. And I think I like that you call the other kid Proto Anakin, because he literally has Hayden Christensen's lightsaber moves, like behind the back. Like if you watch it, like he literally has his fighting style. And so like it's very interesting. I think it's probably a little intentional kind of foreshadowing of like, yes, they're the same fighting style, but also they were both too emotional. Like if Anakin had ever been just level-headed and all that jazz, like everything would have gone a whole lot different, in a few hundred years. 100
So
years.
there's a quote: attachment leads to jealousy, the shadow of greed that is. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. That was Yoda, I think, to Anakin in Attack of the Clones. And possession is forbidden, compassion. I can't read this. Anyway, so it's like, yeah, I think Saul was way too attached to Osha. And maybe Torben was way too attached to Coruscant, you know? He just wanted to go. And yeah,
Yeah.
these Jedi were not, they were starting to lose their way, I think,
Mhm.
from the main tenets. And I think that's what always happens when things get, when you scale anything, I
Yes.
think it gets diluted. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
and I think that's more the point. It's not necessarily the Jedi are evil because they're not the bad guys. In this situation, they made this situation bad. If they hadn't shown up, these girls would be fine. The whole village would still be alive. Nothing, it seems like nothing bad would have happened. Like they weren't out there to do evil things, right?
Yes.
So, or if the Jedi had been calm, they could have talked to the girls, maybe brought one back, everything would have been fine. But like you said, because of the scale of the Jedi, it's not that the Jedi are bad, it's that they're almost unmanageable. Like they're so big, and they're so scattered and so skewed that it doesn't, it starts to lose some of its
Purity.
precision.
Padme, are you allowed to love? I thought I was forbidden for a Jedi. Anakin,
Ugh,
attachment's forbidden. Did you just
don't
groan? I'm
don't
gonna do
don't bring in Attack of the Clones dialogue here. This
attachment is
is some of
forbidden.
the worst dialogue in the whole goddamn uh uh whole Star Wars universe.
Attachment is
One other thing that
forbidden.
was super cool.
You're not gonna
So,
be do it? I gotta read it. No, this is good. This is good.
all right, all
Attachment is
right.
forbidden. For possession is forbidden. Compassion, which I would define as an unconditional love, is essential to a Jedi's life. So you might say that we are encouraged to love. So to me, there's healthy love and there's kind of destructive love. And if you cling too tight, that's where you go wrong. And I
Yeah.
think that's what happened in this situation. That's
Mhm.
all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm wearing my Jedi like robes and I'm just like all Jedi'd out. So okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just, it was just problematic as far as the series of events. Like
Yeah.
there's no true wrong, although if the Jedi hadn't showed up, everything would have been fine. But another thing that is cool, so they talked about how this planet was a virgin, right? How it was dead and it was coming back to life. And they said it had to do with the hyperspace disaster. So there is, when Disney restarted the,
Canon.
books outside of the movies, right? They started kind of rebooting book series and things like that. So there's a book called The Light of the Jedi, which takes place obviously before this one, where the entire story is actually about that particular hyperspace disaster. So it's really kind of cool to see once again, was it Lindsay Headland? Is that her?
Leslie.
Leslie Headland. Um, just like tying more stuff together. Like, you know, there are some imperfections in this story. It's not the most perfect show ever made. But the story that she's weaving, the things she's pulling from and doing all that, I think is really impressive in its own way. Like she's really working the lore for this thing that is pretty friggin' big.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
all
Yeah.
right. So, all right. Well, we agree that the Jedi are bad, so we can move on.
Lame.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I do. I think it's a great episode. And I think it does it, like it makes things, a little ambiguous still, which is good. Which is good. It lets kind of that discussion be had out there. Um, But I'm excited for the finale. I figure they've got to come back to Jason from The Good Place, and it's got to get messy. So
Yes.
yeah, it'll be a good one. So
Right.
all right. Well, let's see. If we're gonna stay sort of relevant, Lauren, you've been watching a new season of a series that you watched before, Claim to Fame.
Yes, Claim the Fame. It's on ABC. We're now up to season 3. Watched the first 2 seasons. This is a show that I've actually talked about uh, with Andrew, I think, for at least the past year or so. I feel like you would absolutely crush it because it's one of those reality shows that you, as the audience, get to play along with as well. For those of you who are not familiar with Claim to Fame, it's a show where they invite relatives of fairly famous people. You'll see A and B list celebrity relatives on this show, and each episode, the whole intent is to reveal one person's claim to fame. And the first episode of each season, they have anywhere from about 12 to 16 people starting, and each individual has to stand up in front of everyone and they have to tell 2 truths and a lie. One of them has to be who they're related to. The second thing that they have to mention to the group is the what their relative is known for, and then third being what their highest award or honor was. So, for example, someone can say, my celebrity relative is my sister. She's most well known for being a singer, and her highest award is receiving a Grammy. And one of those is a lie to the whole group, including the 2 hosts, which are Kevin Jonas, which is the oldest Jonas from the Jonas Brothers, and then the youngest Jonas brother, who's not even part of the Jonas Brothers, Frankie Jonas. So I don't know if they do that intentionally because Kevin
Yeah,
Jonas is part of the Jonas Brothers, and then
yeah.
Frankie's not even in the group, but he is the youngest brother. So they've been hosting it the past 2 seasons. They come back this season, and they've already had the first episode where each episode they give them all a challenge, and the 2 losers of the challenge then have to be put at the bottom, and everyone else has to vote one person in to be the guesser to guess someone else in the house, except for whoever has immunity, to go up on the podium, and then they have to guess who their celebrity relative is. Now, throughout the house, there are clues of the relatives. So, for example, last season, the first person revealed was the niece of Tom Hanks. So they had the bench from Forrest Gump like on the clue wall. The person revealed for this first episode was the niece of news anchor Robin Roberts. So they've had a lot of interesting celebrities, everything from the daughter of Brett Favre to Al Sharpton's daughter to the grandson of Jimmy Carter, former president. They've literally covered in every category of celebrity. They've had Simone Biles, younger sister, who looks like a carbon copy of her. If you Google Simone Biles' younger sister, it's like she was kept in the first season to be like one of the last 5 because everyone knew that was her sister just when they threw her in the house. So like that's her face. But they wanted to keep an easy guess towards the end. But pretty funny. And then the winner of last season was the younger brother of Nick Cannon.
Hmm.
And it was funny because he kept pretty much throughout the entire season, he's like a very big guy. He wanted people to think that he was related to a football player. So everyone was guessing these athletes. And then finally at the end, he's like, nope, I'm related to Nick Carter, which is crazy and pretty funny. They had the son of Donny Osmond on last season. So they really run the gamut in terms of just different categories of celebrities on the show, but it's very good. Andrew, I think you'd be excellent at guessing who these celebrity relatives are. You as well, Kevin. Just they have people who are grandsons, granddaughters of celebrities from the 1920s, 30s, 40s. It's great how they incorporate this, and each challenge will reveal something, different, or you learn something new about a celebrity. So you can keep your notepad ready to go and try to guess along with everyone in the house. And apparently Kevin and Frankie Jonas don't know either.
Okay.
They're revealed as well. So nobody knows, I guess, except for production or whoever else is behind the camera.
Very cool.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
It's very fun.
Does the public get involved at all? Is there any kind of like public
No
voting or anything?
voting.
Okay.
No, you just play from home and you try to guess. There are times I've been like on the money from the beginning, and then there are times I'm so confident in knowing I think someone is related to somebody, and then they're revealed. And the funny thing is, a lot of times people are revealed if they guess wrong. So if you're in the bottom two and you get voted in, you could be so good at hiding your celebrity relative, but if you lose the challenge and you guess somebody wrong, your identity is then revealed. So for this past episode, there were two people on the bottom, this young guy who was yet to be revealed, and then Robin Roberts' niece, who seemed very smart, and she guessed this guy was related to Forrest Whitaker, and she was wrong. So then they showed her celebrity relative on the screen at the end, and she went home.
Do they rotate people in, or is it just a house that's slowly dwindling?
It's a house that's slowly dwindles. Yeah, so I believe they're like 10 to 12 this season. So, and up until like I think they have the last three, and then they have like a final three showdown or something like that, and then eventually everyone's revealed in that group. But people lie their names. People will lie where they're from. There's one girl, she said, she was even saying like, because they'll interview them in like these rooms, sort of like in the real world, in these, what do you call it, like behind the scenes testimonial rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I'm just faking this Southern accent, making people think that I'm a Southern singer, but I'm not from the South. And people will lie. They'll lie.
That's good though. That's what makes it fun. Is like they're
Yeah.
throwing those curveballs to keep you off
One
balance.
girl, she was so good at hiding. Nobody knew what she was. She was a redhead, and she said her celebrity relative was a comedian. And if you go back to like the first episode, she said it like her relative was a male. So everyone thought she was related to Carrot Top. And she was one of the final 5 or 6, and she guessed wrong. And then all of a sudden, Jenny McCarthy's picture showed up, and nobody saw that. But she's the niece of Jenny McCarthy, which is so wild because she was playing the whole card. I'm related to Carrot Top because she also had red hair.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Know your field too of twists and turns you can throw in, right?
Yeah, and they can't bring in phones or anything. They have to just rely on the clues in the house, and then each and every challenge, new clues are revealed, and then the winner of every single challenge gets to choose from the clue room a message in a bottle, and it's a clue of who somebody's celebrity is. So the clue from this past episode, and I'm wondering if you guys, Kevin, if you can grab but like a snippet of this maybe from the last episode, I think that would be very helpful. I feel like you guys would totally know this because it's from the 80s. The clue was something along the lines of Brat Pack, and then it showed a picture of 4 coffees. And for some reason, I think it might be Molly Ringwald, but I don't know. I feel like Andrew and Kevin, because like you guys are 70s babies and this is like a Brat Pack 80s thing, I feel like you guys will know immediately who it is.
No,
But that was
Brat Pack is small and tight, but I don't know what the coffee would have to do. You're talking Molly Ringwald, Judd.
That's what I'm thinking, like the Breakfast Club. So
Yeah.
it's maybe either her or the other woman who plays like the basket case.
Ali Sheedy.
Maybe Ali Sheedy's like daughter, because they revealed one of the girls because she was able to choose anyone in the house, the winner, and she was able to put the message in the bottle, and like the clue is all in like emojis, by the way, which is crazy. But it's like it was like a bra and then a backpack, or bra. yeah, bra something brat like backpack, so like brat pack, and then something else, and then put the clue up on there. Maybe our viewers will know, you guys will know. I'm fascinated by it. I feel like you guys will definitely know more than I do, but I'm like, maybe it's Molly Ringwald. Oh, and it had a crown too, like a queen in the clue. So I don't know if Ali Sheedy or Molly Ring, like Queen
Uh,
of Brat Pack or something
yeah,
like
Ali
that.
Sheedy didn't do a lot. Like she kind of faded away. Not long after that, I think she did the Short Circuit movies, and a few things, and then she kind of vanished. Um, and she's done a few things here and there since, but she's definitely not been a big name. Um, but I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think who you include in the Brat Pack, because I think Robert Downey Jr. is actually part of the Brat Pack too.
Yes.
And then you've got
Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen, even Tom Cruise at one point. Who else? Of course, then the nerdy guy, the skinny one.
yeah, who is not nerdy or skinny now. He's a
Oh,
big
Anthony
guy.
Michael
Yeah, there
Hall.
you go.
Hall.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know, but there was a crown like making it sound like it was a queen. So I don't know, but
I think Demi Moore is even kind of considered it like tangentially. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I would need to see like the actual
the
visuals.
clue.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you guys would crush the show. Like watch a few episodes. I think you guys would nail it. Just like cert it as long as it's not sports, Andrew. If it's like TV, like especially like music, you guys would crush that, or just anything 80s, 70s related. I feel like you guys would do so well with this show. So, but yeah, definitely give it a watch. It's fun. I enjoy it. There's a lot of stuff that I still to this day am like blanking on. I think the winner of the first season was oh my God. She was the older sister of, is it Kyla Pratt? She was from the Proud family. Yeah, I think it was Kyla Pratt. I'm trying to remember. Oh, Kiki Palmer. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
So it's Kiki Palmer's older sister.
I'd be curious to see that, just because,
Yeah.
yeah, see how similar they look.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. You're like, oh, who do they look like? Sometimes these people look nothing like their celebrity relatives. I mean, Nick Cannon's older brother's a big dude. They look nothing alike. If you Google, what's his name? Season 2 winner, claim to fame. His brother's name is Gabriel Cannon. If you look at Gabriel Cannon, like if you look at this guy, you're like, oh, he's got to be related to an athlete. Just his build, he's got the long braids. He looks like he's related to a football player, not Nick Cannon.
So I looked up St. Elmo's Fire, which is one of those Brat Pack movies, and sure enough, you got Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez. The one I forgot to
Wow.
mention was Andrew McCarthy. You got Judd Nelson. Yep, Debbie Moore's in here, and then Ali Sheedy.
Interesting.
They're the five. They're the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main cast members of that movie. Even Andy McDowell's in here somewhere, but I don't consider her Brat Pack. But anyway, very cool, man. Very, very cool.
Yeah, sounds like fun. It just sounds like fun. Like it,
It's a fun show.
and that's kind of the point of reality television, right? Is that it's just fun. Like a lot of the times I don't watch a lot of the overly dramatic stuff with like the Vanderpumps
Right.
and all those. That's Pete's domain. Pete loves the Vanderpumps. But since we're talking about reality TV and transitioning a little bit, I will talk about really quickly Love Island, which I have been watching this summer. For the first time ever, they did the US and the UK at the same time. And what's kind of interesting about that is that the US version airs on Peacock and the UK version is on Hulu. And the only downside to watching the UK version in the US is they delay it a week. I don't know the reasoning for it, but it sucks because I get friggin' spoilers all the time. But the US version has like totally blown up this year. One of the things that they did that it seems like has helped their ratings. It didn't mean anything to me, but it probably means a lot to the traditional reality TV set. The hostess they hired this season is Ariana Madix, who is from the Vanderpump Rules, and she had some huge drama last year or the year before. Um, and but she is apparently a very well liked member of that, and a very different host than the host of the UK version. The UK version is currently hosted by a girl named Maya Jama, who is uh, obviously was some kind of model at some point. She's only like 29, I think, so she's relatively young. She is gorgeous, like she's one of those beautiful people I've ever seen in my life. She kind of is like she's like the Love Island version of Padma Lakshmi, right? Like she's a little darker skinned. I don't know where Maya's from. She looks, but she's, I mean, she's gorgeous. And Ariana Madix is, I think she's around 40 something, pretty, but she's older. And when I first saw her hosting, I was like, I don't know, whatever. And she's really done a really great job. But the gist of Love Island, and I will say over and over again, it is a dumbass show. It is a reality show that I should have no business watching, and I friggin' love it. And I watch both of them. I watch them as soon as they're available. I am a Love Island junkie. I watch the Love Island games, any spin-off show that they've made. I will watch them. And but the show starts off and you have like 5 girls and 5 guys. It might be 6. I don't remember. Come in and they pair up. And then over the course of a few days, they get to know each other. And then they have what's called a recoupling, and they kind of pick who they want to be with. And the idea is to get to the end. The couple that wins at the end gets $100,000. And the twist on it, that's never been really much of a twist, is they can the 2 people that win, the couple that wins, they go up on stage, and the host hands them each an envelope. And the envelopes, basically, the idea of the envelope is they get to pick whether they want to choose love or money. And the idea is if they choose love, they split the 100 grand between the 2 of them. Or they could choose money, take the 100 grand, call it good. Nobody has ever taken 100 grand for themselves. It's always been split. In a lot of cases, the couples that win make it for a while. There are couples that have left Love Island and gotten married, have kids, and been very, very happy. So it's not a total fluke show. Like, it's not all drama for the sake of drama. There are people that really, make real life connections, and you can just see them, just being really happy together. The couple that won last year, I really liked the US version. But so as you go on, what starts to happen is, you have these 12 people in there that are figuring each other out. And then the producers are like, hey, guess what? We're going to send somebody new in there. So they send a new boy or new girl in to fuck shit up. And then they pick, and then, every now and then they'll be like, cool, well, everybody's picked. There's one odd person out, they're out. And so they get kicked off the show. And so they do this rotation, they do all this stuff. And right around the middle of the season, they do this thing, they call it Casa Amor, and they split the boys and the girls up after they've been together for a little while. Everybody kind of thinks they know who their couple is. They send the boys to one house, the girls to another, and they bring in 6 new girls and 6 new boys to the different houses, and just absolute chaos. Now, the UK version has been pretty good this year. It hasn't been bad, but the US version this year, I don't know what the producers are smoking, but they have been total dicks this year. Like, the amount of drama that the American producers have created has been spectacular. Like, they have just been totally, it's like that they're watching in real time and deciding exactly what's gonna just break people. Like, it has been the most dramatic season I've seen, because there's been, this is the 11th, 13th season of the UK version, the 5th version, the American season. I've seen them all. So that's like 18 seasons of Love Island I've watched. This is by far, the American version is by far the most, like, just craziest one I've ever seen. And it, the downside to it, and I'll say to anybody that's going to go watch reality TV, these are 20 somethings, right? Like, they are young. There's a couple, every now and then you get somebody that's like 29 or 30, but usually we're talking 23, 24, 25. So their sensibilities are very young. They do dumb stuff a lot of the time. You get somebody in there every now and then that's 20 or 21. And they're that's very young, especially for relationships and things like that. So you see people making really stupid choices sometimes. Um, but I mean, all in all, it's a fun show. A lot of the times, it's just filled with pretty people. Like they just brought in a guy into the American version that was on for a little bit last season. His name is Harrison, I think. But the dude walks in and he literally looks like Thor from the MCU. He's tall, jacked, like longish hair. Like the man is a beautiful man, right? And he's walking in. So like just the people across the board a lot of time are pretty. And it's just funny to watch people do just stupid stuff. And every now and then it's really kind of sweet. You see the people that really kind of fall for somebody and have a thing that really works. And in that regard, it's really sweet too. But um, if you're a fan of reality TV and you like a little bit of drama and you like the sort of dating shows or whatever, then Love Island is a ton of fun. Andrew, I know you'll love it. Go watch all 18 seasons tomorrow. It's totally up your alley. Um, but no, but it is fun for whatever reason. Like I said, it's weird that I like it because I have no like I've seen some episodes or parts of episodes of like Real Housewives and um Vanderpump and those things like that, and I don't care. Like I don't care about rich people problems, right? Like it's the same reason that I couldn't really get into Succession. Great show, great writing. Like I will never argue it is a great show. I just couldn't get into it because I have nothing in common with these people, like zero in common with these people. And so for me, like I'm not rich. I don't have a bunch of like friends hanging out in my house in my kitchen where my cook makes me food, like crazy shit. So like Vanderpump and those don't resonate with me, but at least for Love Island, like I'm just watching young people. I've been young, I've done stupid relationship stuff. So, to kind of watch that and sometimes laugh my ass off, sometimes get a little angry, and sometimes, get a little happy. It's been a lot of fun. So, um, if reality TV is your jam, then check out Love Island. It's fun. So with that, I don't know, since we are on, well, I don't know. I don't know how it relates at all, but talk about the Arsenio Hall thing because I loved Arsenio Hall when I was a kid. I didn't watch it like religiously, but anytime that like I was awake when it was on, I thought he was a fantastic host. And that's all I really remember about Arsenio Hall is that I liked him. He had good personality and he was funny. And I know he was friends with Eddie Murphy because they were in Coming to America, and all that. But other than that, I don't know a ton. So take it
Yeah.
away.
It relates in that, it's not a scripted piece. So I think we can go from unscripted with Love Island to unscripted with Arsenio Hall. So I was on YouTube as I do, and something has popped up in the algorithm, and it was actually called The Dark Side of the 90s, the Arsenio Hall Show. And apparently The Dark Side of the 90s is a TV documentary series that's produced by Vice Studios, Vice magazine. And I loved it. I loved the documentary. Back in 2005, I actually like started an online petition to bring the show. This tells you when it happened. Bring the show to DVD. Like there was no streaming yet, not really back then. So it was a cultural landmark. So what I will say about Arsenio Hall to really kind of paint the picture is his show ran from 89 to 94, and that 89 to 94 like window was what a time that I actually call the new Jack swing or the new Jack era. And what I mean by that was it was a time in America where basically there was a shift in the zeitgeist in that I'm going to try to speak delicately, but urban America was very much like kind of pushed to the side. It was kind of made invisible. America was very kind of monochromatic. And anything that was seen as hip hop or like, hippity hop or whatever was seen as kind of threatening and pushed to the side. So the people who ruled late night were, of course, really Carson.
Mhm.
And they were just showing how in the documentary that, because those shows were very focused to a certain demographic, they could even make jokes about like some guy buying Sammy Davis Jr. as like a lawn ornament, which is a very kind of racist thing. If you've probably seen like little black lawn ornaments, like whatever. So that's how that was the environment it was in. Um, I forget which network it was. I want to say it was Fox. Fox was trying to come up, and they actually had a variety show. Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was hosting a talk show, and then they eventually got rid of her, but they had a rotating cast of like show hosts to replace them. Arsenio had a 12-week run, and he actually kicked ass. They were going to give him his own show, but he wanted actual control over the show, like producer power. They said no. Eventually, Paramount Studios then offered him a show. They would give him producer credit. It would be syndicated. And then they went ahead and produced the show. It was a hit. A whole bunch of CBS affiliates took on the show because it was syndicated. And it just became this phenomenon. When it dropped in '89, it was a hit. But 6 months later, he goes on the cover of Time magazine for being like, really revolutionizing late night. And the thing that really made him kind of cool was that Carson was so kind of threatened by competition. He would say, if you appear on anybody's show, you cannot appear on mine. Like you're done. And Carson was very popular. He was the kind of, he could really make a career. Roseanne Barr, her career was started after appearing on Carson. But because Carson was not paying attention to the New Jack Swing movement, which was people like Bobby Brown, like TLC, like, basically all the hip hop and R&B artists that were kind of blowing up at the time, all of them were MC Hammer, they were all on his show. So basically Young America and Black America were all about Arsenio. And then he started having guests who were like all over the place. Like Brooke, I think it was Farrah Fawcett. Once Farrah Fawcett showed up, then all the stars started showing up. Stallone, you name it, they were there. Michael Jackson, boxers like Eddie Murphy, of course. So basically he's riding high. By 1992, I want to say, he's kicking ass, and basically Johnny Carson retires. And then there was a big controversy, and this was the beginning of the end. Now, a couple of things I want to say here. This New Jack Swing era thing, it was the first time that, again, like, just say it. I'm just gonna say it. Like, Black people were kicking ass in pop culture. So this had never happened before, not on this scale. So this was an experiment. So whether you're talking about MC Hammer thinking it was going to last forever and then running out of money, whether it was even Arsenio thinking, holy shit, everyone loves me. And I forgot to mention, Eddie Murphy kind of kicked open the door because he was hosting the MTV Movie Awards. I mean, MTV VMAs. I want to say 85 and 86, maybe even 87. No, 85, 86. Then Arsenio, 87 through 90, I think 90 or 91. So it's like, this is all happening. It's like Black, Young together coming up. Now, Johnny Carson retires. It was assumed that Letterman was going to take over because Letterman had the show right after Carson. But Leno was actually a fill-in guy. So NBC chose Leno. What happened next was not good for Arsenio. So Letterman then went over to CBS and said, I will give you guys a show. And remember, Arsenio's show was syndicated and it was CBS affiliates who were running the show. So guess what happened? Once Letterman made their own show, they took Arsenio's show, pushed it back an hour later, and put Letterman instead. And by that point, America was figuring out, hey, this Black thing, we should like get more of that in here because then we're just going to be cooler too. So no longer, Arsenio doesn't have the monopoly on like these artists anymore. Letterman now has a better time slot, and time slots are everything in this world. And then you had basically like kind of like your Spike Lees of the world saying you're not Black enough, and you have like the other side saying you're too Black. And he's getting emotional, by the way. And of course, he's young. This has never happened to him. He's starting to get a little like, what the fuck? Big mistake that happened was there was a cover where when Leno was announced as the new one, he literally said, I'm going to kick Leno's ass. And there's a producer who worked for Arsenio first and then Leno. And he did say, I liked working with Arsenio, but that was mistake number one. Mistake number two, however, was when Arsenio allowed Farrakhan to come on his stage on his show. Once that happened, it was game over. And even like the producer I was talking about, who was kind of watching Arsenio, said, "Hey, every Jewish person in Hollywood is going, you're done. You're fucking done." And he actually called up and said, "Hey, I'm in trouble. This ship is sinking. I need to get out of here." And that's how he got the job with Leno. So it was a very kind of honest documentary. But one of the biggest things that the Arsenio Hall did, just to prove how big of a cultural force it was Bill Clinton was third against Ross Perot and George Bush, the first, for the 1992 election. Bill Clinton shows up on the Arsenio Hall show, is cool as hell. Whereas
that was the saxophone moment, wasn't it?
Just about to get there. Exactly. How the side and plays the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show and jams with his band. That moment skyrocketed his appeal, and he went on to win the election. That's how powerful the Arsenio Hall show was. But by 1994, the era was over. Yo MTV Raps was done by 1995. The Cosby Show and A Different World on Thursday nights was replaced by Friends and Seinfeld. You see where this is going. So it's basically like that little window closed. And after the Farrakhan thing, he basically went out on his own terms. He said, "You know what? You want to say I'm not black enough? I had a fucking Farrakhan in here. Fuck all y'all. But I'm going to end this show because I'm going to do it on my own terms." What was bad though was you left a void, and he did leave a void. And I think, and he hasn't recovered since. But I think a lot is explained in the 47 minutes of the documentary. You definitely, it's just like, and the people who talk about it, like behind the scenes, the producers, I think they're very kind of objective. Arsenio's never actually, he doesn't appear himself on there at all. It's all, observing. But ever since then, now we're back to Kimmel and Fallon. So late night is kind of back to where it used to be. But for a hot second there was something different. And that different was, woof, 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 woof. There was a song called Things That Make You Go Home by CNC Music Factory that was based on his show. And there's just a whole bunch of artists, again, a musical movement called New Jack Swing, that would not have been televised at all had Arsenio not existed. So, even Prince showed up, and Prince never showed up to talk shows at the time. So yeah, it was a big deal. But because it was like a 4-year moment in time, easily forgotten. But I think this documentary did a good job of really highlighting why it should be celebrated.
Well, yeah, I'm actually a little curious about that one. I might give that a watch. Like I said, I really did. I enjoyed Arsenio a lot. When he was on, I remember the Clinton thing. I remember that, like, Arsenio Hall being Arsenio Hall and having his show was a thing. Like, it was a big deal. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot when it was on, and I think that was, let's see, if that was the end of the 80s and the gist of the early 90s. I mean, that's when I was, what, 13, 14, 15.
8th grade, 7th grade,
Yeah,
like that.
at an age where, every now and then I was staying up late enough to actually watch somebody, have a show. So, yeah, it was a legitimate part of growing up, I think, for our generation.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a really fascinating interview, or not interview, but documentary. So yeah, I'll go check it out. Since we're on documentaries, we're being so fluid this time around. Lauren, you watched the Gypsy Rose Blanchard documentary?
Yes, it's recently came out, I think like a month or two ago on Lifetime, and it follows Gypsy Rose Blanchard after she was released from jail in December of 2023. Her whole case has been followed pretty closely for the past couple of years, especially now that she's out of jail. I know she's had numerous interviews. They've even done, I think, like a Lifetime movie about her life, but it's pretty horrible what happened to her. She was a victim of Munchausen by proxy disorder, where her mother was doing things like taking her to doctors and convincing people that she was ill and giving her medications and having her be in a wheelchair and living this life of a very sick and disabled child when in fact there was nothing wrong with her physically. So the amount of abuse that she received mentally, physically as a child is unimaginable at this point. And I believe like around 2011, 2012, at least like 10 plus years ago, she was speaking with someone online and developed feelings and a relationship for this guy who apparently had either schizophrenia or some sort of mental health issue. And she convinced him to come to her house or murder her mother in order for her to escape that life. And he did. She died. And then after that, it was revealed that Gypsy Rose, in fact, was not disabled. She was walking out of, and everyone's like, it's a miracle. We've only seen this girl in a wheelchair, and we didn't know she was capable of all this. Meanwhile, like her mother had her pretty much prisoned in her own home, and she used her disability to meet celebrities and go to Disney World, and they show all these pictures with her teeth missing, and her mother convinced doctors, and that's the crazy thing, that none of these doctors like picked up on it, or maybe they had some inklings but no one actually followed through to say, hey, this girl's like really sick. They just performed these unnecessary procedures on her. So she's got scars all over her body. She was in jail for 8 years. She was just released, and during her time in jail she was engaged to one guy by the name of Ken, who's from Texas. She's from Louisiana. And then that ship sailed, that engagement fell through. And then and these are guys that are like, I'll just say it, weirdos that are like, oh, Gypsy, I'm so sad by your story. I'm writing to you. I know you're in jail. Like they're kind of, I guess, inspired by her. Don't know why, but it's like one of those like weird situations where she's getting fan mail in jail from creepy guys. And then Ryan Anderson is the guy that she, I guess, was married to for 2 years. I got married in, I want to say 2000 or 2022. And he's the one who picks her up in the documentary. That's like first episode. She gets picked up from jail. Her husband, who's like incredibly obese and overweight, picks her up. He gets her fries from McDonald's, and then they go to a hotel room. I think her prison was in Missouri, I believe. And then they drive her to, her father's still alive. He's remarried and she's got a half sister. And then you get to meet Gypsy Rose's lawyer. And the first thing she does is she gets a phone and she starts posting on social media. And you notice like how addicted she is to this attention and the media following her. She does an interview on The View. She does interviews or on the podcast with Nick Viall, the Viall Files. She's everywhere and they're watching her every move. And now at this point, granted, I think it's like only been like 5 or 6 episodes that have been released. Apparently in like February, March, she broke up with her new husband, Ryan, and she's back with the guy that she was engaged with before, I guess in 2018, 2019, who she was with prior to 2022, that guy Ken. He's back in the picture now, and they just announced within the past week that she's pregnant with his child. So it's kind of a mess. It's a real mess. She has had work done, plastic surgery. She's had her nose done. I know she had her teeth done. Her teeth were pretty much like rotted out of her mouth, which is really sad. So she's really trying to live her life. So I mean, it's tough because a lot of people are pulling her apart. You have people online that are saying, "Why is this girl out of jail? She was charged for, I don't know, some second degree, third degree manslaughter, whatever, because she was the one who came up with the plan, even though she didn't actually murder her mother. She came up with the plan and told this random guy. But it's just interesting how many men are like so intrigued by her and like want to be with her. It's odd. It's really odd.
Yeah, that goes both ways though. You know, when a serial killer ends up in jail or somebody crazy, like women will do the same thing, right? Like it is it's a thing. I don't understand why it's a thing. Like you
Yeah.
know, I crazy is crazy and it's not going to go away. So if you try and hook yourself up with a crazy person, you're getting a
Yeah.
crazy person, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
It's
weird.
so weird how like these two guys were like writing her in jail, like, oh, I love you. And yeah. And she's been engaged twice, I mean, married once. It's so odd. And she's got a very, very high pitched voice. That's, something that can really distinguish her from other people. Uh, yeah, I mean, I really feel for her, but I don't think she's making the best decisions. You're fresh out of jail from being behind bars for 8 years, and now you're like, I'm gonna be free, get married, and have a child, and be on social media. And it's like you should just really work on yourself. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not in her shoes. Hard, easier said than done, right? But it's definitely fascinating to watch for sure.
Yeah, I know if you're fascinated by the story and you don't know the history of the story, I remember seeing it on Hulu before. I just looked it up. There's a show called The Act. It was an 8 episode miniseries that aired on Hulu. Stars Patricia Arquette, Joey King, Anna Sophia Robb,
Yes.
Chloe Savini. And it rates out pretty highly on Hulu, and it's the story of before, like before she goes to jail. So all the things that she goes through, the things that her mother puts her through before she decides to do this. I mean, yes, having your mother murdered is a horrible, horrible act, right? But like she was so abused, and used as a tool for her mom's, sympathy. Like her mom was getting, stuff from doctors and she was on the news and she was all this stuff because her daughter was so sick. And so like it was her little claim to fame. And now you can see that that sort of mental illness that is just passed on, right? So
Right.
it's an interesting story for sure, and it's definitely a case of mental illness. And like somebody should be watching out for this girl out in the real world like a lot more closely than they are. Like, it should be like the Britney Spears conservatorship, right? Like this girl she's just not equipped to make good decisions. You know
No.
what I mean? Like somebody
Yeah.
needs to be able to protect her from herself while also not being as absolutely psychotic as her mom obviously was. It's like it's a weird, weird line where um, she's I mean, if she's not hurting anybody, maybe, a conservatorship or something like that's too far. I don't know the details like on, what decisions she's making in her life. Um,
I don't know if her
but
family has her best interest, to be honest with you, Kevin. I mean, I'm watching a
doubt it.
couple of episodes, and I think like episode 3 or 4, they bring on like the ex boyfriend or fiance who she's now with. They interview him, and the mother, her stepmom, is texting him, and she's like, I can still have a relationship with him even though she's moved on. I think that's really weird, super weird. And then she doesn't like her husband, who she ends up breaking things off with. It's so weird. It's like, don't get involved in your kid's love life. It's so odd.
Yeah, and I think the pull of fame is a lot in this thing too. Um,
100%. It's very disingenuous, and I really feel for her. I don't know if these people have her best interest at heart, and I feel like she doesn't know the difference because I mean, look what she grew up with her
yeah,
mother and her father. He doesn't really say much. The stepmother is just talking to her ex-fiance, which is so odd. And now we know like they're together now. But the first couple episodes, she was like, "This guy broke up with me. I was devastated." It's like, but now you crawl back to him, and you're having a baby with this man, and he dropped you, didn't care about you, and as soon as you came out of jail and was formally announced, he wants to know what's up. No, bye,
yeah. Well, the thing is,
bye.
like, she has in one form or another for her entire life gotten attention, right? Whether it was from
Totally.
being sick, whether it was her mom, got it for her from being sick. Then there was the trial. Then there was jail. Now she's getting letters in jail. Then she gets out of jail. She's got social media. She's got movies being made about like fame is a weird thing, man. I think fame really messes
Is a
up
theme.
a lot of people. And at the same time as it's messing you up, I think you also crave it. It's a bit of a drug itself. So yeah, it's
Totally.
interesting story for sure. Well, yeah, and that's what's that airing on right now? Do you know? Is it
Lifetime.
Lifetime?
Life
Okay, yeah, you
after,
said that.
yeah, Gypsy Rose, Life After Lockup.
Yeah,
It's not riveting content just to clear the air. It's one
it's
of those you can definitely do the dishes and fold your laundry while you watch and kind of just smirk like, okay.
yeah.
The,
What's really crazy about it is that it's a true story. Like
yes,
it sounds like it should not be a true story, and it's totally a true story. It's
it is.
wild.
Yeah. If anything, like I haven't seen the act, but I mean, they have all these stories because it's just such a profound, or at least, I mean, not really anymore, but it was, right? Like I feel like a lot of they're using her story as probably like a case study of this is what Munchausen by proxy disorder is. Like she is the case study for it.
Hmm.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, well, all right. So I'm going to try and bring us back to a little bit of joy here, although maybe not. I watched with my boys this week. It dropped on Paramount Plus, the movie If, which is Imaginary Friend. It is John Krasinski's film starring Ryan Reynolds. Um, and the gist of this story is there's a little girl. She her mom passed away of I think is cancer. Her dad is about to have heart surgery. So her life is a little tense at the moment, and she's going to stay with her grandmother. And upstairs from her grandmother, she meets this man, Ryan Reynolds, who, as it turns out, they can both see people's former imaginary friends. Like if you're a kid, you had an imaginary friend. At some point, you grew up, you didn't believe in them anymore. They can't interact with you anymore, but they're still out there. And so, like, the point of the movie as the girl is going on, she finds out that Ryan Reynolds' job basically is to try and find new kids for these imaginary friends. And so she jumps on board and kind of takes over. It's not a bad movie, but the middle, like a good chunk of the middle is kind of just problematic. Like it doesn't story wise, there's no explanation of like character arc and why the characters are doing the things that they are. There's like a random single like musical number in there that doesn't fit with the rest of the movie. And it's a little bizarre in parts, and it kind of takes away from it. The beginning is pretty decent, and the end is pretty decent. Ryan Reynolds is a little grumpier than Ryan Reynolds usually is, which kind of takes away from the charm that he could have potentially had in this movie. On IMDb, it's a 6.5 there. I think it was a little lower on Rotten Tomatoes. Um, but yeah, it just didn't review very well, and I know it didn't do very well in the theaters. Um, but lately, that's not really a surprise. I think you have to do something really special to succeed at the theater. Um, but
Significantly higher from the audience, 88% versus 49 from the
which makes sense to me
critics.
because I think, especially, I watched it with two teenage boys and we laughed at some of the stuff that was happening that wasn't well done. Um, but like we got the movie, and the end of the movie is really sweet. It ends in a really good spot. It's got a little bit of a plot twist in there that I think me and my boys all saw coming. Like it wasn't a genius plot twist, but for little kids it would work. And I think it really is. It's like a safe family movie for sure. Like kids could watch it. I think the message is there, all the stuff that you're looking for. It's not a great movie. So like from a critical standpoint, like I said, there's things in the bones of the movie that just weren't well done. Like I said, like some of the character development and things like that should have been better, and they weren't. Um, the voice cast in it was amazing. The little girl that was the main character, she was on The Walking Dead, the last few seasons of The Walking Dead. She was Rick's daughter, and she was adorable on that. She's a little older here. She's probably 12, 13, something like that. And she did a good job. But this had Ryan Reynolds, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, John Krasinski he was the dad, so he was live action. But Steve Carell, Louis Gossett Jr. was in there. This was like maybe his last role. Um, and it was a small role too. I don't know if he um was kind of working his way out of acting anyways, or had been out of acting for a while. I hadn't seen much from him anyways, but it was kind of nice to see him in there. I grew up with the what was it, the fighter pilot movies that he did.
Iron Eagle.
Iron
And then
Eagle,
he
there you
was
go.
also in the something of the incredible something of Matthew Starr. It was a random
He
show.
was also in Enemy Mine,
Watchmen. Enemy Mine. Yes, he was a Drac,
which
which is
which
hilarious. They're called
Enemy Mine
Dracs.
is being remade as a series.
Okay, well,
Uh,
and that was
Enemy
Randy
Mine,
Quaid. Or not Randy Quaid. It was
Dennis.
Dennis Quaid. Yes, yes, yes.
And I'm already way off topic, but Enemy Mine is still, I loved Enemy Mine. I thought it
Really?
was a great story of how war is kind of bullshit. These people were on opposite sides of the war. They got stranded together and they became friends. And like Dennis Quaid literally raised Louis Gossett Jr.'s baby. Like that's how close they became. And the whole reason that they were ever fighting is because they just didn't understand each other. When they came together and had to understand each other and get along, like seeing this as like an 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid or whatever I was, I completely got the message, right? Like I got it. And it was a sci-fi action movie and all that stuff too. But I thoroughly enjoyed Enemy Mine. So the fact that they're remaking it, I'm actually kind of excited about because they're going to do it as a series. So they can get a little more detail in there. I think they just can't lose the message because there's a point to that movie for sure. But anyways, it was nice to see him in If, or hear him in If, I guess. And it's a sweet, cute story. There's a lot of stuff that works, a lot of stuff that doesn't. Um, but I think Andy said he watched it and he got like teared up at the end. I don't think I quite teared up, but I can see how people would. Like it's a really sweet, like emotional ending. And like I said, it wasn't a brilliant plot twist. Me and my kids all kind of saw it coming, but we enjoyed it. So I would say if you've got kids, maybe you don't have to pay like super close attention to it, but I think kids will like it. So if you're going to watch it with them, I think it's a lot of fun. Um, and yeah, I mean that's really it. It didn't blow me away. I didn't hate it, but it could have been better, which is weird because I kind of maybe shouldn't, but I expect more from John Krasinski at this point. Like if he's responsible for it, The Quiet Place kind of put him on the map as the guy that is doing this stuff, and he set his bar pretty high. And he wrote and directed this, so I didn't expect the mistakes in there that I saw, I think is what it is. So go in with lower expectations, and I don't think you'll hate it as long as you enjoy kids' movies.
Last thing, Lou Gossett. Did you see Watchmen? Because he was Sister Knight's dad, basically Regina King's character's dad.
Yes.
He was really
But
fun.
yeah, that was the new Watchmen, right? The
Yeah,
one, yeah,
the one on HBO.
yeah, which was awesome.
Yes.
Really love that. All right. All right. Well, we're winding down.
I have something I
Why?
want to talk about.
What's that?
Maybe you want to talk about The Boys really quick?
Yeah, we can do The Boys real quick.
Awesome,
Um, Go ahead.
because when you see something, say something. Report that groomer when he comes for you. See something, Say something because he hates America and Christmas too. I'm sorry. I mean, you can cut this out, but it's the woke principal and his husband, Chad, or he could be your uncle who says soups are bad. It might even be your mom and even your dad, but listen to the golden rule. If you see something, say something. Call 1-800-1-VOT. At first, that drag queen might seem really nice, but reading that book could come at a price. Stranger danger, you know it's true. Could be a groomer coming for you. Could be a moocher from the welfare state, or a teacher who tries to indoctrinate, a socialist who says the stars and stripes aren't great. Keep your eyes open and your eyes stay peeled, but whatever you do, make sure your lips aren't sealed, because if you see something, say something. Yo, the
Super
satire
catchy.
of The Boys, and I knew when the show was ending, I'm like, the credits have to be that fucking song.
Hmm.
And sure enough, it was. Oh my God. All right, go. But I was a fan of this episode.
I was too. The one thing that I thought was too on the nose, and maybe they were pushing it just a little too far, was when they had the documentation for the assassination attempt, and they're like, it's January 6th, blah blah blah. I was like, that's a little too.
But
I
you
mean,
know what's
it's on
crazy,
brand for the thing. It's
though?
like it's what they're doing. It was just like I said, it was just too on the nose. It wasn't that it was wrong
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah, yeah.
It was just too on the nose. It was like they were pointing exactly at the thing instead of that satirical vagueness that makes it more
You
fun,
think,
right?
do the
You
work.
know,
Yeah.
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 It was just like January 6th bad, and you're like, I mean, I agree, it was a bad thing, but like it was too in your face. Otherwise, I thought the episode was really good.
Dude, Tilda Swinton, first of all,
Yes.
her acting was incredible.
Yeah.
But then number two, I think I'm a pretty stoic dude, honestly. Like when it comes to my emotions, like I'm expressive, but there's some ice in these veins, okay? Dude, my blood ran cold when the Deep is sitting outside that door and Tilda Swinton is acting out what happened.
Hmm.
Dude, that was honestly, in my opinion, that might have been the most disturbing thing I've ever seen on The Boys. I don't know about you, but because I really liked that character. The way she acted as the octopus
Yeah.
was like that's acting. Tilda killed it. What
Yeah.
did you think?
You know, I thought it was incredible. And like you felt it like because you just kept expecting him to give in. Like because it was like so like raw and like it was like it was agonizing. And like I really like I expected him to give in. I expected him at
It's
some
funny.
point.
I knew he wasn't going to. Like I was like, nah. He's like, this guy's been tormented and embarrassed by this thing so much. He saw his chance, and he was all in his feelings because she called him out on the fact that like he knew that he was being. Anyway, she knew, and he was like, this is my chance. This is my chance, and I'm gonna let it happen. Kind of like when Walter White let the girlfriend like die in her sleep. Like, this is my
Mhm.
chance. Let me just let it happen. But I think, and that fucked up Walter White. As a matter of fact, even
Mhm.
the actor, I think he said they had to comfort him after he acted that scene. And yeah, I think that was a turning point. And whenever you see stuff like that, this show is winding down. It's coming to an end. Like the point of no returns are happening, whether it's with A Train. I think that guy is a dead man walking.
Mhm.
I think even Nicole Menifee, like she's probably in danger, but because she had her chance to leave and she's like, no, I'm staying. And I think for her, I think it was more like, I've done so much dirt. I don't deserve to live.
Yeah.
I think he might have to go, like just because he's making his choice.
He's
And
yeah,
then
he's setting himself up for that last stand.
yeah, because it's like it's never gonna end. Like they're gonna go to Belize. Like I love that A Train's admission, or just like he got him in. And then I gotta say for the fellas, dude, when Starlight shows up in that outfit, I'm sorry. Like I was like, wow, that's your face is straight. So I don't know if you felt the same way I did. But anyway, you didn't? Okay, I did. I was like, that's some thank you, girlfriend. Anyway, that was amazing. And I was just like, that's awesome. But then it sucks because we know
Yeah.
that wasn't Starlight.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. Anyway, but yeah, no, it's winding down. And I'm now wondering who's gonna live and who's not.
Yeah.
Because it's
Do
yeah,
we only have one episode left of this
yes,
season?
yes. And then the next season is going to be
but there's a Gen V in between also.
Correct.
Right. So yeah, yeah, it is good, and it's interesting to see what was going on. I'm curious what'll happen with Sister Sage, um, because she didn't have the magic milk, man, and Homelander turned against her, and she's out. So like that's crazy. There was Homelander's kill, which was he was like, God damn it, man. But like before that, the dude just keeps like
Yes.
I was just like, it's like Jesus Christ. But yeah, that was a brutal kill there. Um, but yeah, it was a good episode. It was really interesting. It definitely sets up whatever's coming in this last episode. Um, I was seeing some, I think it was either Butcher or it was MM. I think one of the two of them was kind of saying that they would like to see season 5 end on a cliffhanger and then do a movie.
I think it was MM.
Yeah,
That
and
actor.
Anthony Starr,
Ladalani.
yeah, Anthony Starr basically said he's like, no. He's like, I don't want to hold on too long. He's like, I want this thing to end. And then he basically said too, he's like, people were asking if he wanted to play another superhero somewhere, and he's like, I'm too old for that shit. He's like, I want to ratchet it down and do some other stuff. Because to be honest, he's amazing. Like he is so good in that role. It is an awful, awful role, but he is so good at it. Um, and I think it'd be interesting to see where he goes next.
He
And
deserves movies, I think. I think he's good enough. She should be in feature
mhm.
films. I have to say, even when Firecracker is trying, and he's like, just go away. She's like, okay. Like she just gets
Yeah,
out there.
there was a minute where she was like, "Oh, yeah, I might die." Yeah,
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 like yeah. He's scary. And now I'm just convinced if Homelander is asking you questions, it's a wrap. Like he's asking you, you're gonna die no matter what. So just make your last moments like ones that you can live with, because Homeboy just squirting like spider webs out of his butt. Anyway, yeah, I
yeah,
understand, because he knew he was a wrap. Homelander is gonna kill you.
yeah. And that's the thing. I think Homelander is officially above the law at this point. Like he knows it. He's not afraid of anything, and he's gonna do whatever bad thing he thinks he needs to do to move forward.
Do you have any predictions for the last episode of this season?
You know what, I don't, because like I don't even know what the end goal of this season is. Like it feels like there should be like 4 more episodes. So knowing that it's ending, like I don't really know where it's going to end. I- there's they're developing this virus that it seems like they don't believe they can use on him.
I think
So
what's kind of
they
scary though.
they want to use it on Vicky, but um or Victoria.
Yeah, not Vicky,
Yeah.
Vic, whatever. Yeah. What's scary though, and this is why it's a little too on the nose, and I'm just gonna speak in code because I don't want to be like messed with by the YouTube censors. But the name of the next episode is Assassination Run, and I watched this episode today, and that's all I'll say. You already know where I'm going. So I feel like this show is really on the nose. So for people
Mhm.
who like in terms of really capturing the kind of sociological conflict that's happening in that show, because it's supposed to be a satire of what's happening here. So to me,
Yeah.
that's insane, that
That,
coincidence.
that that's a good point. Like I forgot about the whole assassination, even though I brought it up at the beginning. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, that's where it's going to have to end, is some kind of standoff around them trying to take out the president and do that, because that's an interesting one for sure. I love that the president's character's name is Bobby Singer, because the actor played a character named Bobby Singer on Supernatural.
That's amazing. That they know what they're
And
doing with that.
and Eric Kripke, the creator, loves his Supernatural guys. So um, he brought in Jensen Ackles to play what's
Boy,
his
boy.
bucket. Next season, Jared Padalecki, the other of the Winchester boys, is going to be on. They've got a role for him, so he'll be in next season, and and so that'll be fun to see. Like there's nice little Easter eggs kind of that are outside of the boys that still are fun. So that'll be neat. But yeah, I think, yeah, it'll definitely have to take place around them trying to take over. I actually, if I'm making a prediction, I think they'll succeed. I think at the end of season 4, I think
Nick will be
Homelander is going to take over. I
Oh.
think season 5 is going to have to be like balls to the wall. We have to take this guy out, or the world is over. And so yeah, thinking about it, that would be my prediction. That in fact, at the end of this season, Homelander is going to win for this season.
Which would basically be the Infinity War of like, like the bad guy wins.
Yeah.
And I just gotta say really quick, narcoleptic, Black Noir.
That was so fucking
that
funny.
was
That was hilarious.
Amazing. All right, cool.
All right. So yeah, that's where we're at in that. Okay. So we've done a ton, but I still have one thing I want to talk about, and I know Lauren's got the Secrets of Playboy that you watched, right? So what even is that besides being about Hugh Hefner?
Gives you background of just how much of an exploitation it was that Playboy a company was, and gives you background to who Hugh Hefner was, outside of just what the media showed back in the days. They have so many women come forward that were his former girlfriends, playmates, people that worked in his office, people that worked in his clubs, because they were apparently, which I didn't even know, they were Playboy clubs. This all started out of Chicago back in, I believe, the 50s or 60s. He was 27 years old when he started this.
Wow.
His first magazine came out, and he was the founder and CEO of Playboy, and he positioned as sexual liberation. This is an opportunity for women to express themselves sexually, when it was really more of, no, you're just framing it that way, when really you're exploiting these women, and you feel like you're claiming that you're empowering them, but if anything, you're manipulating them to think that they have a position of power, when really you're getting closer to the dollar, profiting off of them, drugging them, and really creating future trauma for them as well. So it goes through a lot of that. One of my favorite shows in high school that I used to watch on E was The Girls Next Door.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where this initially caught my attention, when I was going through Disney Plus / Hulu, where you could stream this on at this time. Probably not Disney, right? More likely Hulu.
Well, they're the same now, so there's a lot of stuff that
yeah, it overlaps and stuff. But the thing with me is, because I watched the first season, a lot of it's not in chronological order. It goes back and forth. So I had a problem with that, because it was hard to understand. I think they just did like different themes each episode. Like one was just focused on one of his girlfriends that he dated in the 70s through the early 80s. So it just was from her point of view from there. So, and her name was Sandra Theodore, who he dated, and she just spoke about her experiences with him. Then I think one of the first like 3, 4, or 5 episodes was Holly Madison from The Girls Next Door, which is who I knew because I watched that show. That's about Hugh Hefner and his 3 girlfriends, and really from their point of view. So it starred Holly Madison, who was his #1 main girlfriend, Bridget Marquette, and then Kendra Wilkinson. And Kendra wasn't on there at all. Bridget made an appearance and spoke her piece. She, to this day, is still very close with Holly Madison, and Holly wrote a book in 2013 called Down the Rabbit Hole, and she exposes Hugh Hefner for just a lot of her experience. And she said she loved him, but she related her love to like Stockholm syndrome, like someone who falls in love with their captor. She didn't know any better. All of these women, like the main theme is they didn't come from much, and they had a dark past or a troublesome childhood. And I think they felt like Hugh Hefner was rescuing them from that, and they were kind of allured by this, rich and lavish lifestyle that they got from the mansion out in LA, and being able to have like room service and order whatever they want, and have these, fun pool parties and going out at night. But it then exposes a lot of like the dirty horrible things that went on behind the scenes. Like they were actually having sex with this man in his 80s, 90s, not using protection. They had like butlers and people that used to work like in the house say, "Oh yeah, we just used a wet like washcloth and washed his penis." And then he would just have sex with the next woman. And it was just really gross to hear that. They then had two of the twins, well, one set of twins. Their names are Christina and Carissa Shannon. They were in the last season of Girls Next Door once Holly, Kendra, and Bridget moved out. They had Crystal Harris, who he ended up marrying. That was his wife for the last like few years that he was alive. And then the two twins. The two twins appeared in like one of the last episodes. One of them got pregnant by Hugh Hefner, and she had to keep it quiet and had an abortion. They talked about how, and a lot of the women mentioned Quaaludes. He would just give these women Quaaludes and told them, "Oh, you're fine. Like this will just relax you." And these women were raped, molested. They spoke about once a week they had something called pig night, and Hugh Hefner had like a bunch of his guy friends in in the mansion with him, and they would have like drivers go scout out on Hollywood Boulevard, like beautiful young women that in many cases were just 18 or 17 years old, brought them in a limo. "Hey, you want to come party with us?" Took them to the mansion, partied with them, drugged them, took them to Hugh Hefner's bedroom, and then kicked him out. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story because it's just like you can see the allure, especially when you look at like when you had the Girls Next Door, it was such a sensationalized show, and it seemed like it was
It
such
was.
this happy tale of these three girls just having fun doing this thing, right? Like it was definitely
Hmm.
produced with Hugh Hefner in mind more than the girls, really, even though they were driving it. Like he was never ever vilified in that show,
No, he
right?
was like, as they joked around, they're like, "Oh, he was the happy grandpa, like the old man, like
Hmm.
just so fun to be around." But really, he controlled what they ate, how they looked, what they wore. They weren't allowed to have boyfriends. They couldn't leave. I believe they had like a curfew of like 8, 9 o'clock unless they were with him. They couldn't leave the property unless it was like a family holiday. So a lot of them were pretty much prisoned in that mansion, which I know you were like, how bad could that be? But it's to the point where these girls had a live where when they were talking about the Shannon sisters, how one of them was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go shopping for bras." And really one goes shopping, the other one jumps into, forgot which rapper, but this famous rapper's car who they were friends with, and he took her to like a Planned Parenthood or somewhere to get an abortion. Came back, you didn't know about it until like after the fact, and she was like maybe 20 years old.
Yeah.
And she's laying in bed and he's like, "Come on, we got to take the shower." And she's like, "No, I'm not feeling well." And she's like bleeding and just a complete mess. And it's really sad. You feel for these women and what they went through. And they showed this woman, Mary, who was like the main secretary who they confided in, and they opened up and they said, "Oh yeah, two both twins said that they got chlamydia." And Mary was like, "Well, that's what you get for having sex with him." Like making them feel bad, like as if you should expect to get something like that and to transmit that type of disease because that's your place. You're in the Playboy mansion. Of course you'd get that.
Yeah.
Completely belittling them and gaslighting. It was pretty hard to watch. And especially like you said, Kevin, like you watched the show Girls Next Door and it was so fun. You wanted to visit the mansion
Yep.
too and just be a fly on the wall and hang out and party with them.
Yeah, I mean, and that show was showing the next generation of girls that this would be very fun to do, right? Like it
Totally.
was like there was an innocence to those girls, and like Holly was. I didn't watch it a lot, but I saw some. Holly was pretty sharp. Like she was the
Very
probably
much
the
so.
smartest of the three. Kendra was sweet, but she was not super sharp. Like she
Based
was.
on the writing, they made her seem like an airhead, which is
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
really messed up,
Um,
etc.
And I was really happy to see her get out of that. Like I know she married Hank Basket. They got divorced, but they had some kids.
Right.
I think they stayed okay with each other. Like they're not together, but like I don't think they hate each other. I could be wrong about that. But now she's a real estate agent. She's got her own
Right.
reality. Like she has been able to move on and live her life and get through it.
She
Which,
also
made me
came up
happy.
like I know she was raised by a single mom. She came from like hard drugs and stuff like that
Mhm.
before she met Hef. And I know she would say like, "Oh, Hef saved me, Hef saved me." She was not in that documentary. She
Yeah.
was not quoted. And I know her and Holly do not speak. They are not on good terms, which is interesting. So I think their experiences were quite different in the
Yeah.
house and also just her relationship because even after all those years she was still very close with Hef and I think Hef was more of like a father figure that she never had.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you come from something bad,
Right.
when you go to something that maybe still isn't good, but there's all this other stuff around it that is,
Totally. Smoke
you
and
kind of,
mirrors.
yeah, you kind of take that stuff that's still bad and look, hey, it's not as bad as it was. And then
100%.
shit, I live in a mansion. I have a pool. I have all this. Like you can disassociate a little bit if life was bad enough in the first place. So that's probably, I'm sure that's what it was for her. Um, and
100%.
but
Holly even talks about herself, just how she couldn't relate to like anyone in the house, how she was diagnosed with Asperger's.
interesting. I did not know that.
And just, I didn't know that either, just how she realized she was very different from the other women. Um, Initially, because before the girls next door, she was a girlfriend along with like maybe five, six, seven other women. And
Mhm.
she became close to Hef because of their I guess, interest in old movies and history. And she was more of an intellect. And I think she couldn't relate to some of the other women in general. She came from Alaska. I know she was not in like the most populated area, so she didn't get to meet like a lot of different people. So, and I know Bridget mentioned she had like a job and she still wanted to work, and Hef said, no, you don't need to work, I'll pay you and you can just stay on property. So he tried to like bribe these women to stay there as long as possible, getting them gifts. And I mean, there were animals all
Mhm.
over that property. Like they wanted to make it like Neverland for adults.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, if you make it, it's funny enough, it's the same thing that corporations do now. So if you look at a company like Google,
Hmm.
they tell all their employees, they're like, you can make your own schedule, you can do whatever you want. But at the same time, what they do is they have free food on the Google campus, and
Right,
they specifically set dinner time late. So if you're gonna stay and have the free dinner, it starts at 6, not at 4:30 or 5, so you don't leave early. You can bring your pets to the office, so there's one more reason you don't have to go home early. Like they're not telling anybody that they have to be there for 14 hours a day, but they make it so easy to be there for 14 hours a day that life is easier if you're just at work for 14 hours a day. And so many people do it, and especially because they get so many young developers and people like that. Same as Hef. You bring in the young people that don't know any better and show them all these things they can have if they just stay, you know.
right,
And then another thing that Google did that was really smart was they had buses that pick everybody up if you live in the area. Well, those buses have free Wi-Fi on them, so people are working while they're on the bus to work,
right,
right? Like it's and I'm not bashing Google necessarily, because if people are doing that work and they're happy doing it and they don't mind giving 14 hours of the day or 12 hours of their day or whatever, then by all means, do it and make sure you're getting paid great for it. That's all I can say. Um, but it was a very conscious business decision that they made that doesn't seem like it's a negative thing, but it's kind of a negative thing. Like it's a controlling thing that feels like freedom. And
right,
it's really interesting psychologically, and I think that's probably exactly what the girls at the mansion went through. You're like, oh, I want to go do this stuff, but why do I have to? We have cooks, we have I have all the clothes in the world that I want. I can go shopping when I want. I can have friends over and
Right.
we can have a party. You know, like when life is too good, it's hard to say no.
Right. Yeah, definitely an interesting series. You learn a lot of its foundations as a company, and just even it's funny because he died in what, 2016, 2017, and that's like really when the Me Too movement picked up steam. I
Hmm.
can only imagine if the show would not last now.
Mm-mm.
People would be like, creepy,
Yeah.
get this guy off, cancel his ass. Like he would have been, I mean, people were already saying weird shit to him, but like he would have been beyond canceled. And I think women just would be more alert, younger women, to the point where they're like, I don't want to live with you, grandpa. Bye. And
Yeah.
and just leave.
Yeah. I think at some point, he was for himself. I think he was lucky to be doing those things when he was doing them, because I think
Totally.
you would see at some point like Epstein level like investigations, right? Like
Yep.
it would be bad. And now to save image and keep the company going, Playboy's changed tack. They don't do nudes in the magazine anymore. It's not a nude magazine anymore.
The Hefner family's not even affiliated
Yeah, I
with
don't think they
Playboy
are.
anymore. They're
Yeah.
done. They're absolutely done. One of the episodes they delve into the drug issues and how one of his assistants was almost like the mule for the
Mhm.
company, getting them drugs from different sources, bringing them to the clubs. One of the bunnies, they called them bunnies, the workers
Mhm.
at the clubs, overdosed on drugs. The assistant was on trial. I mean, and they never got Hugh involved. That's the thing too. And really, he was the person who was pulling the strings from behind the scenes. They buried it. And then this woman who was his assistant, she committed suicide
Mhm.
before she was actually, I mean, she was on trial, but before they came to a final decision or anything. And it's just very sad how he used people in such a way and how things got the way they were. So yeah, it makes me feel bad for watching those shows from back in the day, and even just hearing Holly talk about it, because she even said I looked like I was happy, but I was, suffering inside, and she didn't know any better.
Yeah.
A lot of these women, they thought they had the life, but they didn't realize anything until years later, like, oh, yeah, he drugged me and then slept with me. Yeah, that's considered rape. And then it's funny, like, no, it's funny, but the beginning of like each episode, they show celebrities, and like in the, I guess the beginning credits or whatever you want to call it, and they have Bill Cosby show up because he was, I guess, very much so involved in Playboy. And Hugh was very groundbreaking, not only for his business tactics and trying to portray this sexual liberation movement, but also you see him out and about mingling with people that were Black during like the 50s and 60s, and that was considered very taboo at the time. And he was very edgy and progressive, and that helped really elevate his status even more.
I
He
think, I
played
mean,
he
it's ultimately Playboy as a magazine had lots of like legit writers involved. Like
Hmm.
I'm seeing like Saul
Stephen
Bellow,
King wrote for Playboy all
John
the time too.
Updike. Like, so it wasn't just a nudie magazine, it actually
Right.
was a culture magazine. So that's
Yep.
number one.
Big time.
Number two, I was surprised Playboy's even still around because I looked online. It looks like the last physical, like the print edition was 2020. It's all online now. I also, when I was working at an ad agency, as in for media buying, like I was working for a beer company. So beer companies obviously want to buy ads in magazines that are going to attract men. So what I was surprised about was his daughter was, I think, the publisher at that time.
Yes, they talked about that.
So I think overall, like, the kind of sad thing about this whole thing is that I think that while there are good people and there are bad people, there are also complex people. And I think that the majority, basically like what Kevin said, like the things that he was doing, and it's funny you mentioned Bill Cosby. I feel like that era was an era where men did bad things and would get away with it. The whole Quaalude thing, all of that. It's like, I'm not saying Frank Sinatra or whoever did that and stuff, but that was just what they did. And basically, as time moved on, especially like you said, post Me Too, that shit's not flying anymore. So he's from a bygone era. Not right. That was their mentality. But yeah, I think, and I was also going to say, this sounds like a cult at the end of the day. And I think that cults prey on people who are lost, who are damaged, who are, to Kevin's point, they came from a bad place. And if this cult is still bad, but it's a little better than what I came from, I'm going to stay over there, And I think that it's a cult thing. And I think a lot of humans have this need for community. And so when you talk about the Google bus, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like some extrovert shit. So if I wanted my community and I want to sit on a bus and do work with all these other people doing on the bus, and then we can go to the office and eat dinner together and play with our pets together and not be alone, that sounds to me like, yeah, like Google is genius. And I think living in a mansion and sharing a boyfriend, honestly, I don't know. That to me is already problematic, but whatever. If you're that lonely and you have that low of self-esteem, I get it, because it's like you're hungry and starving for some sort of love or for touch.
And using the cult analogy, he's the cult leader. So of course they want to be with him, right? Like, yeah, it's
right.
So that's all I'm saying. The Playboy Mansion was a cult. And what's crazy to me is that like the Playboy Mansion was held up as this kind of prestige thing. Like if you're in Hollywood and you get invited to the Playboy Mansion, like that's cool. Like that's where it's at, And I always had like a side eye towards that. I always did. And never fell for it. I never fell for the glamour or the allure, because there's no way that seedy stuff isn't happening there. So you're normalizing it. And then in normalizing it, you're allowing more of that seedy stuff to happen because it's normal, So yeah, I'm not surprised to hear any of it. But thank God it's over. And documentaries like this will help, to your point, Lauren. Kind of, what's the word? Vaccinate, I guess. Like, saying psychologically vaccinate people from falling for the same shit, or at least that's what I mean. Yeah.
And also just create more awareness for younger women. Yeah. It gave me very similar notions to like Quiet on Set. Granted, they weren't children, but there's a parallel there for sure. So, yeah, I think that one I don't want to say connected more than Quiet on Set, but I mean, I just remember watching The Girls Next Door and I loved that show. I thought it was fun. The theme song's always in my head. Like, just it was such a fun show, and I followed those girls for so many years. Like, particularly, I think more so Kendra, because she had all those spin-off shows. I know Holly Madison, actually, Andrew had a show in Vegas, Peep Show, for some time. No longer the case.
Yeah, I'm just struggling to understand why, like, what the allure was. I don't get it. Like, I literally don't get it.
To which part of it?
Just like, why as a young woman you'd want to like follow Holly Madison or any Playboy bunny. I don't get it.
Because they were fun. It was they were fun.
Their life,
like literally, that's
fun.
what it was. They were fun.
Go ahead.
They were having fun. They were, because you took out out of it. You took out the evil side of it. They were girls out having fun every day. They were going shopping. They were doing things that.
But is that really what life's about at the end of the day? Shopping and fun?
It's not, but that's when you're 16 to 20.
When you're in high school,
every girl wants to be out shopping. They want cute clothes. They want to do all this stuff. They want to do all these things that these women are doing. No, but that's.
I'm sorry, that was part of the show. So again, I don't know. I've never been dumb.
But it didn't really.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
It didn't really come up on the show. Like it.
Correct. They weren't like being like, "Hey, God." They never talked about like, "Hey, let's talk about the threesomes we have." It was more just share a boyfriend.
I just lost at sharing a boyfriend.
But if you watch the show, though, even watching the show, Hugh was like happy grandpa. Like when anytime you saw Hugh, he wasn't like all over them, and like it wasn't about what they were going to do. He was just the
They were
funny
on
grandpa that
road
showed up.
trips
So
and
like
like,
all those things that should have
yeah,
been offensive, they softened. Like they softened way, way, way down. And then it was about the fun of the life. Like I'm telling you, like
totally.
this was almost a grooming show for the next generation of women that he
That
was going
I
to
want.
want. See,
Yep.
and that's why it worked, because it only showed the good things. It only showed the things that people would look at and be like, I would like that in my life. And not that they want everything, but
Right.
like
100%. Like no one's like, I
Right.
want a
It's just,
91
it's
year
like,
old
did you watch
boyfriend who's like
did you watch
drooping. No.
MTV Cribs and be
I
like,
think that
dude, that house is
actually,
sick?
no.
But
I
you know
mean,
people that did, right? Like
yeah, but
people
that's what I'm
watched
saying.
Cribs.
I've always been a little different, just being real.
Yeah.
Like I just never fell for that shit. I think the closest thing that I liked that was kind of all that was like when you watch MTV Spring Break and you have performers like on the stage and
Mhm.
everyone in their bikinis and shit and they're jumping around. That looks fun. And I'm sorry, I would have fun. I would be drinking and enjoying the show. But that's
But
as far as it goes.
but
As far
that was half of, yeah.
Well, that's like here, you want to go to a pool party. Like they had some, like I love going out and about. Every night was a different theme night.
but
They had
you're
a
at the
murder mystery night. They
Playboy
had a party that was
Mansion
all like
and it was built
But
on
midsummer.
sex and pornography.
but that doesn't, like,
Not,
that's not part of the story. It's totally not part of the
yeah.
story.
Doesn't talk about
Like,
the show. Yeah, not part of
it
the
was
show.
not made for people that were looking for that side of the story. It was made for people that saw three beautiful women living like the dream. They could
The dream,
seemingly on
basically.
the show, they could do whatever they wanted. They could go shopping whenever they wanted. They had parties all the
Yep.
time. They hung out with their friends all the time. Like Lauren was saying, that they had game nights. I mean, everything you saw watching this was these girls living the life. There was no downside to watching them on the show. Mm-mm.
They were not showing drugs. They were not showing them having sex. Like Hugh Hefner would just like walk by, like, "Hi, honey," kiss on the mouth real quick,
Yeah,
"Bye," and then they're doing that. Yes, creepy, but no one's thinking about that. Everyone's thinking Kendra is about to play golf with some famous guy. She's
yeah.
making a workout video. They're later going to be doing a Midsummer's Night's Dream party, and everyone's dressed up in Shakespearean
Yeah.
stuff. That's stuff I love, like just fun party themed parties. Like that's up my alley. So that was more
Yeah.
of like, I want to go to a party. That looks fun. Never did they
But
talk
they
about,
shouldn't.
hey,
But they shouldn't have to. They
they never
shouldn't have to
mentioned the
talk
word
about it. I mean, I just
quaaludes.
think you should be able to put two and two together and say this is happening at the Playboy Mansion. End of story. That's all. That's to
Nobody
me. It's
cared.
not a big of a leap. Exactly.
Nobody cared.
Nobody
That's the
cared.
thing. That's the thing, is that nobody cared. And that's what we talked about. Like that was the era. Like that's the way it was, right? Like it just was. And so, it
But yes, Playboy
was.
as a brand is not going to work anymore.
I also, I mean, I was so young when it came out, Andrew. I was not thinking about, are
Mhm.
they actually sleeping with them? I'm being honest. At 15, 16, I like honestly, I was like, oh, this is a guy who probably can't get it up anymore. It's funny. Ha. Like they're his girlfriends. Like I did not think he was
But
doing
it's
what
not
they
even a
were
sex
doing.
thing.
Like I'll
It's
be
like a
honest with you, I just
polyamory
thought
thing. Like, were you
it was more of like
down
a
with
platonic.
polyamory as a kid, or as 15-year-old? Like, were you? So then, but these girls were. So
No,
that just
absolutely
that's a
not.
disconnect to me.
But it doesn't matter because it's their choice. But
Oh,
also,
no.
but again, it was
Correct.
not the basis of the show.
But it's the context of the show.
Correct. It
Yeah,
was
we're
about,
not going
like
to
what
agree.
they were
We're going to
doing
agree, but
during
it's
the
like
day.
it's the context, and I just think that again, and I think that my perspective,
what I would say
because you're
for
not going
your
to
perspective
follow down that.
is find the show, watch like 3 episodes, not to enjoy the show, but to see the way that it was produced,
Yeah.
to see what, like, because it was absolutely. Mhm.
It's like Barbie. It's like the movie Barbie. It's just fun. They did whatever the heck they wanted
And
for
it
the
was
day.
target,
It's
like,
the
it
world of
shouldn't have
Barbie.
But
been, but it
even
was
Literally.
Barbie,
targeted
the
for
movie,
girls.
she's like, this is bullshit. Like Barbie actually starts to wake up, and that's kind of the conceit of the
But
movie. It's like,
they don't want
but that's what I'm
like,
saying. So
yeah.
even Barbie positions that mindset as not good. Like,
Well, that was the point of Barbie.
But she didn't have that mindset
no,
until
it was
after
before the
she
real world.
went
I
to
think she
real
actually had
world,
like she got
right?
a pimple or something. Something happened to her where she had an awakening, and then she wanted to find out what
Yeah.
else is going on.
Oh,
So
okay,
yeah,
fair.
I think all I'm saying is that I understand now that some people literally just don't really want to go beyond like plastic, which is what Barbie was. But I do think at the end of the day, even the Barbie movie is saying what I'm saying, which is look deeper.
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't marketed to people that were going to look deeper. It really was
Correct.
for as wrong as it was marketed to
100%.
the 13, 14, 15-year-old girls.
Which is disgusting.
Yeah,
By the way.
100%.
me.
100%.
It is. You don't think that way. I was never thinking, oh, is he actually in the bedroom? I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh
It
my
was just
God, they're doing pool parties and fun things during the day. That's so fun. That's it. Oh, and this old man is like
Yeah.
pretty much paying for everything. That's fun. Like that's all you think. You're never thinking like, oh, they're all having sex. Like not until maybe like my 20s, I was like, or I don't know. Like obviously now I know that there's sick people, but when you're 13, 14, you're not thinking like, hey, this guy, you know, doing inappropriate things behind the scenes. Is this 90-year-old man or 80-year-old, however old he was, like at least in his 80s during the show, right? Like, does he have malintent? You're not thinking like that when you're 13, 14. You're just not.
Number one, it was a different time. Number two, the age group that it was targeted at didn't think that way. Boys are different too. Like boys at like 13 and 14, we're thinking about all of the sex. Like as a 13-year-old boy, if I was watching this movie with 3 girls, I'd be like, I want to be Hugh Hefner right now. You know what I mean? Like that's it. That's the male angle, but the girl angle of it was totally different. Hugh is completely out of mind, and it's all about the fun that the girls are having.
Yeah.
So it was this was all about.
They talk about the show through, like even on the special, it's through the lens of the 3 girls, the girls next door. And that's exactly what they wanted to position in the magazines. They wanted a girl that was relatable versus I think their competitors like Hustlers magazine and other magazines that were straight up like sex. Whereas this was meant to be like more tasteful.
But I would say
relatable, tongue in cheek.
Playboy girls were actually more hot. Like I think they were the hottest.
Sure, because they were in a lot of cases they felt like real, felt like real women. But yeah, Playboy was always of the adult magazines. It was the classy one. Like I said, Stephen King wrote short stories that were in there. There were articles by tons of people, over the years. They did, sports spreads in there where they talked about, the upcoming seasons. Like it was also a magazine. Like, and I think that was probably what made it such a successful business, is because they kept it as a, quote unquote legitimate business. Like they're also even the nude part of it was tucked into the middle. Like it was like you had to get there. Like it was the prize in the box.
To produce the Marilyn Monroe nudity. So it's like at the end of the day, I just, if you guys like, again, I'm not a reality person, so if you guys are saying this show about girls at a Playboy mansion was aimed at teenagers, then I gotta throw my hands up, because teenagers don't even know what Playboy is. That's fine.
Yep.
Andrew, if I saw this now and I was like, this is a show, what is this garbage? Why are these women going after this old man? Creepy. But when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, you're not thinking that. You're just like, that's such a cool life. Who wouldn't want that? I'll be in a bikini all day and have Grandpa.
And when I think of the E channel,
in the background,
think of kids. I'll be honest with you. I think E is more about adults. But again, kids can watch the E channel because it's not behind a paywall.
Yeah, and there was nothing. There was no parental warning on it. There was no, and there was never nudity on it. Like it was never.
Yeah, of course not. No.
It was never adult. So, and
whenever they got naked,
and that would have been then like in a changing room, like.
Well, if it's blurred out,
it was blurred out. Yeah,
I don't think is supposed to be aimed at people under 18. Personally, but I think we're talking about this too much now. I think it's
but in most of those cases, it was like them going out and trying on clothes. It was like when they were somewhere where,
or taking photos. Yeah. Well, like for the centerfolds, never like just taking photos. Like
so you
they had
know
the
what the
3
magazine
girls
is
on like a spread of one of the covers.
I rest my It's all no. I rest my case.
I knew what it was as a kid, but
like, whatever. It was a fun show.
It was a fun show.
Yeah,
It was a fun
I,
show.
I
Kevin, you
understand. I
It was a
understand
fun
Andrew's side of it. I
show.
know what was wrong with it. Like I 100% know what was wrong with it, but I also
There was
know
so
the
much wrong
reason
with
that it
it.
succeeded and what it was doing at the time. 100%.
And they knew what they were doing. Playboy, like at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, took a dip in sales. They created the show. It went
Because
back up. It was genius.
it
These
made
women
the
wanted to
magazine
be
itself attractive to women also, because now
Right.
there was not just
more
It
of
was
a pain
actually
appeal.
doing
Yeah,
what
they
you
want that.
sold.
It was the
So
lifestyle.
the
They're
magazine's
selling the
tagline
lifestyle.
at first was entertainment for men. They
Mhm.
dropped it eventually, so that was the tagline. So, but now it's like he was saying back in 50s, 60s, I'm trying to empower you guys. And then back now, like you said, in 2000s, he's like, yes, I want to empower these 3 women and like blah, 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 and of course it works. It's like, yay, I want to be like
Yeah.
them. And then it's like, and then the sales go back up, so hey,
it was a brilliantly run business for a
Right.
long time.
yes.
It really, really was. And it afforded Hugh
was.
Hefner a whole
Lifestyle.
lot of a whole lot of stuff. So all right. Well, I was going to talk about Supercell, but I think we've gone pretty long, so I might save
Yes.
that. But if I'm saying this and anybody's curious about it, go watch Supercell. It's on Netflix. Very interesting series. It's a sort of a superhero show, but sort of not. I don't want to say much more about it without diving into it, but I do recommend it. It was good. Definitely ends on a cliffhanger. Better get a season 2 or it's a useless ass show, but it's pretty solid over there on Netflix. 6 episodes, I think, is all it is. And they're only an hour long. They all felt a little longer, which was interesting, but it's not. It won't take you long to watch if you're into it. So all right. Well, we went pretty long. We covered a crap load and apparently a whole lot about reality
Playboy.
television this week. But do you guys have anything else you want to say before we?
Yeah, all I
shut it
wanted
down?
to say is I did finish Kong X Godzilla, and I was happy with it. The only thing I would add, I think, is the movie did a really good job of really making Kong relatable, as far as like it was brilliant to show him with a toothache, because I think it's easy to look at a big monster and think, oh, they don't feel pain or they can handle it. But then when you see that even a tooth is like, what the fuck? Then the shit that he goes through, and you're right, he does get his ass kicked many times in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, you feel it and you feel for him. And Godzilla's a fucking asshole. Like, I mean, in this movie. And it's just like, so had the other kaiju that you didn't spoil not shown up, it would have been a wrap. So for me, like, I'm happy with the way the movie ended. Believe it or not, I'm still partial to King of the Monsters, just because I feel like these movies have gone into like a world where it's like, you're right, it's fun. Like King of the Monsters still had a little bit of dread to it, but now it's like, you're just watching these big ass fucking monsters fight on screen. So if you're in the theater and you have your 3D glasses on, especially with the zero G scene and all that, like that would have been fun. But there's mad people dying, dude. Like when they're fighting in the cities and stuff, and there's like like the amount of carnage that must be happening right now is like insane, and we're not even dealing with it, But anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that Godzilla X Kong is better than Godzilla versus Kong. But if I rank them, I would probably put King of the Monsters on top, then Godzilla X Kong. Although I still need to watch the original Godzilla to recalibrate, because I think that one was the most serious one.
For sure.
So, just wanted to get that out there. I did watch another anime, but we're gonna leave that on because we've been on for about over 2 hours now. Holy crap!
I do love the new Godzilla Kong world, because they're just walking through France destroying shit, and you can just see everybody. They're like, man, come on. Like people aren't even mad anymore. They're just like, man, these guys are dicks. They're just walking through our city, just fucking shit up. Godzilla's sleeping in the Coliseum, just taking a nap. Like, they're just like, fuck, like, can't these guys just disappear?
Pyramids, like,
there's nothing left. They're just giant dick monsters, just destroying shit. So yeah, it's hilarious. So anyways, I will say to everybody at home, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I think Andrew is out next week, so it'll just be me and Lauren. The following week, it might be just me. we'll see what happens there. But we'll have some good content, and have a great week, and we'll see you next time.